To make the value scales for complementary colors, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to draw 3 value scales of 7 squares. We're going to label the top of our paper complementary so that we know that we're working with complementary colors. And towards the top, we're going to start with our first one. I make mine about 7 inches long, with each square measuring about an inch. So I'm going to mark off each inch until I get to 7 and draw a line. Now I'm going to make the end of my value bar on the right. Go ahead and make a line underneath. Connect it over here on the left. And then I'm just going to bring these lines down from the marks that I made on top, which is going to give me 7 squares. Now I'm going to start working on the second one, and I'm just going to repeat the process. Now we're going to label our value bars. The first one will be red and green, the second one will be yellow and violet, and the third one will be blue and orange. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to label the percentages of the amounts of paint that we're going to add to each other. So up at the top one where we have red and green, we're going to put red in the square to the left, just red, 100% red. To the right, we're going to put green, just green, 100% green. And in the middle, we're going to add 50% of red and 50% of green together. And you'll see what happens when you mix these two amounts together. Next to the red on the right, we're going to add about 80% red to 20% green, 60% red to about 40% green. And then to the right of the middle square, we're going to add about 60% green to 40% red, and then 80% green to 40% red. That's going to be the same amount that we use for the yellow violet and the blue orange. So now it's time to go ahead and start adding some paint so that we can see what happens when we add the complements together. I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit here, get it a little damp, and I'm going to take just the red and green on my paint tray, and the first square that I'm going to do is going to be the red square, so I'm just going to use 100% of red, nothing else. So scoop up a little bit of that, and I start applying it to that square. I want to fill up the square completely, so take your time, practice with that craftsmanship. Fill it all in. And once I finish the red, I'm going to clean my brush off and I'm going to move to the green. Repeating the process. In that green, I'm just going to use 100% of the green. So now we're going to see what happens to the red when I start adding about 80% of red with 20% of green. You're going to see that it's going to start darkening up that value. And this is one way that artists will create their values darker, is simply by adding the complementary of a color. So I'm going to take a little bit of this red here, just a tiny bit of the green. I'm going to mix it together. And you can see it's starting to get darker now. I'm going to fill in that square to the right of my red square. Nice kind of brick color. Now, take a little bit more of that green. And it starts to get even a little bit darker, and the color starts to dull as well. So it's not as vibrant as that original red. It's starting to get duller, darker. Now I'm going to try to mix the same amount of both, and what I'm looking for now is sort of a gray or maybe even an almost black color. A very, very neutral color is what I'm looking for. That looks pretty good. So that's how you darken up the red with the green. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at how the green darkens up when we add red. So now I'm just going to take some green, repeat the process, just a little bit of red. Red goes a long way. The pigment's very dark, so be careful. Mixing that up. You want to make sure that it still has some green tint to it. There we go. That looks still a little bit green, but yet it's still darker. Not as vibrant, and it's starting to tone down a little bit. A little bit more red to it. I'm going to add a little bit more green to that because it's getting a little bit too red for my taste. It still should, the green should still be the dominant color in this value. Put that down. So the green should still be the dominant color, like I just said, but it should also be darker than the value to the right of it. Maybe a tiny bit more red to that. Because I want that middle one to look almost black. Okay, and there we go with those reds and greens. And as we move on to the yellow and violet, we're going to repeat the process. This one's a little trickier because it stays pretty golden. It's hard to get the purple and the yellow to mix to where you can really see some of that purple in there. So be patient, just make sure that the values are different and that you are gradually going from one color to the other. So I'm going to start to apply just the yellow with nothing in it. And of course I'll do the same thing on the other side with the violet. Remembering to clean my brush off, squeezing out that water. So now I'm going to clean my brush off and I'm going to start back on the end where the yellow is. Now remember that purple is a very dark color, so it's going to darken it up really quickly. So you want to go very easy on that purple when you start mixing it. You want a little bit more yellow than purple, of course. Just a bit, just like that. And some people think that this color comes out kind of ugly. I really think it's a beautiful kind of golden color. A little bit more purple. And we should see it getting darker. And we're just going to continue like this till we have about half purple, half yellow, and then we will move into mixing yellow into purple. This should be almost brown. This would be a really good start if you ever wanted to make brown, is to take purple and yellow, start mixing it together. Now I'm applying the color to my last square, but I'm noticing that it's already a little bit too similar in value. So I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit more purple to it and darken that up. Now when you get to blue and orange, you're simply going to repeat this exact same process. Your middle shade, 50-50, should look very brown.